Hi, I'm so happy to see you here. Everything we are about to cover can be applied to searches on mobile phones, computers, or even across multiple search engines like DuckDuckGo or Bing. Now, having said that, I do recommend that you follow along using Google on a laptop. Now, before we dive into the content, you'll also want to download a visual guide that I've created for you. You can either bookmark it or download it as a PDF for future reference or even print it out and keep it by your desk. So we kick off with basic searches with exact matches. Now this tip is fairly well known and it's pretty simple. Searching a phrase in quotes will yield only pages with the same words in the exact same order as what's in your quotes. It is one of the most vital search tips, especially useful if you're trying to find results containing a specific phrase. Let's say you didn't know that Shakespeare wrote Hamlet, or let's say you didn't even know that To Be or Not to Be was from Hamlet. If your client for some reason is looking for that answer to what that play is from, you would know by searching the exact quotes. This works for song lyrics too, or anything else. If you're trying to find a conference and you know a catchphrase that somebody has used before, you can search the phrase in quotes. Now, if you can't remember the quote exact match trick, we can always head to advanced settings. Now go to settings and then come down to advanced search. Here you'll see all sorts of different options. We have the option here to put the exact word and phrase, or if we can't remember the exact word or phrase, we can also put phrases that we do remember into this top search bar here. You can also drill down and search by different languages, updates from any time, or news articles from the past week, past day. We'll drill down a little more into that later. But I did want to give you this option as well, just in case you ever forget the quote marks, or if you're trying to search for an exact quote and it's not quite right, like if you have your exact phrase that's incorrect, the advanced search is a good place to start as well. Here's a lesser known trick. Searching a phrase in quotes with an asterisk that replaces one of the words will search for all variations of that phrase. Now this is really helpful if you're trying to determine a song from its lyrics, but you couldn't quite make out the entire phrase. Here's an example. Imagine all the blank living for today. Google will fill that asterisk in for you with imagine all the people living for today. Most people aren't aware that Google automatically assumes that the word and is between all words in your search query. So if you enter two words, that means it assumes you're looking for pages that include both of those terms. So there's actually no need to type the word and into your searches at all. Now this is very different from assuming the word or between the words in your query. As an example, I want you to compare the query freelancer Uber, which, if you remember, is really Google's way of saying freelancer and Uber. And then I want you to compare it to a search where you write freelancer or Uber. Now in the first query, the results that include pages that mention both freelancers and Uber are going to be your results. That's because, again, Google has the and it thinks you want to search for both phrases simultaneously. But in the second query, if we were to add an or, the results include pages that mention freelancers alone, as well as pages that mention Uber alone. Now the distinction between these two queries is minor, but it's an important one, because an article can contain either word, but doesn't have to include both. Now, this usually works really well when you're searching for two similar words or subjects, but you want to learn about them separately. So if you want to conduct an either or search for pages that include one word or another, but not necessarily both, then you definitely have to insert the or operator between the two keywords. And when you use the or operator, make sure that you insert it in all uppercases, or Google will completely ignore it as a stop word. Now here's a bonus tidbit. Speaking of stop words like and or, Google automatically ignores these and many other small common words in your queries. These are called stop words. They also include the words how, where, what, to, a, and many, many more. So including a stop word in your search normally does nothing but slow down the search engine itself, which is exactly why Google simply ignores them. So key takeaway, you want to research two different but similar subjects, you must include or in all uppercase letters. Now, have you ever found a web page that you really, really like and then you wondered if there were any more like it? Well, wonder no more, because you can absolutely use Google's related search to display pages that are in some way similar to the specified website that you're looking at. For example, let's say you've been asked to book some very complicated travel for your client who's a CEO. She wants to use a combo of miles and points to secure upgrades, and your head is absolutely swimming with information. Fortunately for you, you found an awesome website called The Points Guy, and his blog has helped you understand how airlines run their elite status programs. But now you find yourself wondering, what other resources can help you become a travel booking pro? So we're going to use a related search, and it works like this. We're going to type in our operator, which is related, followed by a colon, and the website that you want to search for. Google automatically pulls up a lot of really great websites that are related to that Points Guy's travel. So you don't have to worry about other kind of travel pro websites because they're all collated here for you. Sometimes you want to search for something within a specific website. And fortunately, we can do that. So when you type your search terms, I want you to follow it with site, colon, and then the website. Now, this has been a handy shortcut for me when I've been asked to do research for archived articles. So the next time a client comes to you and asks if you can find articles on startups in the New Yorker, you'll be ready. Because rather than go through every single New Yorker article hoping to find something that's relevant, you have a shortcut. Now here, you'll see that all of our results are tailored across many different years, but they're all from thenewyorker.com. This is a much faster way to help you research certain things, especially if your client only wants to reference one particular resource. If you're looking for a specific type of file on the internet, you can use the file type search for only those types that match your query. For example, you'll want to use the file type and then, followed by PDF or doc if you want to find a Microsoft Word document. So let's put this into practice. Let's say you're helping your client research freelancing for their next ebook, and you want to save some of the PDFs that relate to your freelance search. We're going to use our operator. We're going to type in file type. You always want your keyword to come in before the operator. So we're typing in freelancers, followed by file type and PDF, because you only want to save downloadable PDFs. Now, if you look down at the search, you'll see that everything Google is pulling up is a downloadable PDF. The handy thing about this type of search is that this way you can easily download these types of documents. Again, this is just a much faster way to help you drill down and find something specifically and easily. This works with many different file types, so don't be afraid to type in documents, Excel files, even text files. If people are uploading files to the internet, this file type search is a really fast way to help you find them quickly. Sometimes Google searches are too general and they give you results for things that aren't actually relevant to you at all. Now, this happens a lot when you're searching for homonyms, which is when two words are spelled the same or sound the same but actually have completely different meanings. For example, you might be running a search for bass, and instead of getting guitar results, you might get results for fish or NSYNC's Lance Bass. So you can exclude words from your search by using the dash operator. Any word in your query preceded by the dash sign is automatically excluded from your search results. I want you to remember to always include a space before the dash sign and not after. Let's say your client has asked you to look at the best apps in 2021. Now, this particular query brings up both iPhone and Android. But what if your client is actually an Apple user? We can simply type in our exclusion operator, which is after our phrase, we do a space, then the dash, and the word that we're trying to eliminate. So by using the exclusion, it's actually just a more tailored and faster search because the results are only going to pull up iPhone. There might be times that you've been tasked with finding a specific image, let's say for a client's PowerPoint presentation. You'll know that clients can be very specific about imagery. Fortunately, Google Images can be tailored to help you find the impossible. Here's an example. Let's say a client has asked you for visuals for their internal presentation, wealth management for professional athletes. What we can do is go right to the Image tab and then go to the Tools section. Now the tools gives us a drop-down menu. I definitely recommend that you utilize the large file size. If you're doing a presentation, the large files come out with better resolutions. And then we can also go through certain things like usage rights. Now, commercial and other licenses or Creative Commons are quite different. Creative Commons is for free usage, meaning you're not making any money off of it. So looking through this quick search, here's a pretty great photo. It's large, the resolution is really great, and it's pretty easy to right-click on an image and save the image to your desktop. If you click on an image that you really like, you can also scroll down for related images. Google gives you other suggestions of images that might be relevant to you. Now, I want to reiterate that for this example, using Google Images is great for some sort of internal presentation because it won't be monetized. It's for your client's internal team only. But if you are tasked with finding images that can be used for commercial purposes, i.e. your client is using these images to sell a product, or they even want to put some of these images on their website, then I suggest that you use a royalty-free image site like Pexels. You can also purchase images from websites like Shutterstock. Pexels is great though. You can input your same details here, and it's not as specific. I think for Pexels it actually works in your interest to use a more general term like athlete. It's a little different than Google. The more specific you can be in Google search, the better, whereas something like Pexels, the more general you can be, generally the better your images are going to be. I use reverse image searches all of the time. I think it's one of the handiest tools on the web. I've used it to help confirm that a vacation rental home is real. I've used it to confirm the identity of people on LinkedIn. Now this website is a little different. We're going to type in images.google.com. This function allows you to upload an image file and find information on that image. So for example, if you've uploaded a picture of the Eiffel Tower, Google will recognize it and give you information on the Parisian monument. It also works with faces, and it directs you to websites where the images also appear. You can use this feature for a ton of different things too, like identifying a work of art or showing you images that are visually similar. Now, I mentioned that I use this image search also to make sure that certain vacation rentals are real, and I'm going to show you really quick how that works. Now, I am quite literally picking a random location over random dates. And because this is just a quick example, we're going to click on this first link, and I'm going to drag this main Airbnb's image from the website and onto my desktop. Now I'll go back to reverse image search, and I'm going to drag that photo into the website. Now if you scroll down, it shows me pages that include matching images, and I can see very clearly that this listing is only found for this particular home in Cleveland. Now that's a good sign that this is a real listing. I've actually searched for homes before for clients, particularly homes that don't have any reviews on Airbnb or VRBO. After you do a reverse image search, sometimes those images come up in luxury travel magazines, and that's a pretty good indication that the home you're about to rent is not a valid listing. This also works really well for LinkedIn phishing. Sometimes people who create profiles are not real, and you can do a reverse image search of the person's face. Now this is a very quick example. I pulled up the whole profile, but what this website is showing you as well is that this particular profile is fake because they ran a reverse image search on the man's profile photo, and as you can see here, it comes up under a lot of different industries. Now, tinyeye.com is a very similar website. It works just the same way that Google works. Having said that, I actually prefer to use the Google reverse image search just because I find the results page to be a little easier to navigate. But if for whatever reason you weren't really into Google image reverse search, you could also use TinyEye with the same degree of validity. Let's talk about Google's other specialized searches. Definitely bookmark these sites because they might come in handy one day. First off, Google Books searches the full text of hundreds of thousands of fiction and nonfiction books. Now, this is particularly handy for a few reasons. One, it helps you search for specific books that you're interested in, and in some cases gives you free glimpses into the text so you can actually read some of the snippets. But I end up using this a lot if your client is looking for something like a list of the best leadership style books. Now, the more specific you get with the searches, the better your results are going to be. And like so many other Google searches, you can actually refine your searches for books here by the date, by the relevance, if any of these books are free. So I find this to be a really handy way to drill down on certain books, especially if your client is looking for something specific. Another great one is Google News. Now, you might be wondering how this is different than the Google News tab, and I'm so glad you asked. So, Google News searches a variety of news sites for up-to-minute headlines, as well as historical newspaper archives, which actually date back by 2 centuries. So it's very easy to personalize the Google News tab here, which helps Google show you stories that are of interest to you or your clients, and it's in one central location. So I like to use the Google News here because it's very handy for keeping tabs on clients or their companies. For example, I was once asked to track all the news about one specific startup that my client had invested in. So rather than me running a new search every single day, I simply selected their company as a topic to follow. And by starring that topic, I was able to log back in every day and see if any new news articles had come up about them overnight. And it was also a very easy way to save stories about that particular startup as well. Now, last but certainly not least is Google Scholar. Google Scholar searches a database of scholarly journals, articles, papers, theses, is that the plural? And books, as well as select items from universities and research libraries. Now, the reason that this is really handy is if you've ever had a client who's working with you on a stricter research basis. So if you need peer-reviewed articles quickly, this should be your go-to resource. And same thing here, you can actually collate the findings by dates, by relevancy, and then the links will take you to some really solid peer-reviewed journal entries. Again, I think all of these kind of specialized searches that Google runs are really handy just to help you find information faster and more accurately than if you were running a general Google search. Fake news is nothing new. Sites like Snopes.com have been exposing viral and false claims since the mid-1990s. So it's crucial that you do a quick check before you actually pass along your research or your sources as credible. Now here's some expert advice on how to spot a fake, courtesy of factcheck.org. Number 1, consider the source. Sites might try to spoof their URL address so that they appear to be affiliated with something more credible. For example, abcnews.com.co is not a credible site because it's not the actual URL for ABC News. Now, other sites aren't so upfront, like AmericanFreePress.com. While that sounds legitimate, there are signs that this is not a credible resource. For one, there's no information on the staff members, and their physical location links to a real estate company. These are further signs that maybe the site isn't as legitimate news as they tell you they are. A great site to search for the validity of a resource that you're looking at is to actually use the website mediabiascheck.com. So let's check out American Free Press. The reason I like this website so much is because they give you a pretty good indication of where they fall on the bias check. Now any source you check can be left-leaning, right-leaning, or somewhere in the middle. And for all of our sources, we want to be aware of maybe the biases that these websites are presenting. We really want to avoid anything that's in the lower spectrum, especially ones that veer off into the propaganda or conspiracy angles. Number 2, read beyond the headline. If a provocative headline drew your attention, I want you to read a little further before you decide to pass it on or not. Now, even in legitimate news stories, the headline doesn't always tell the whole story. I'm sure you're familiar with this phenomenon. It's called clickbaiting. In fake news in particular, there are often several revealing signs in the text that you can check for. Number 1, check the author. A pretty telltale sign is to check the byline, which gives credit to the name of the author of the article. For example, there was a fake Pledge of Allegiance story making the rounds from abcnews.com.co written by a man named Jimmy Rustling. Now, his author page claims that he is a doctor who won 14 Peabody Awards and a handful of Pulitzer Prizes. That is very impressive, if it were true. And it's not, because those are all Googleable facts. In fact, no one by the last name Rustling has ever won a Pulitzer Prize or a Peabody Award at all. Number 2, look at the ads on the page. A profusion of pop-up ads often indicates that you should handle the story with extreme care. Another sign is a bunch of sexy ads, or those links that are designed to be clicked on and take you down a rabbit hole of lies. So be aware the next time you see naughty Walmart shoppers caught on camera. Number 3, where's the support? Many times the bogus claims will cite official or official sounding resources, but once you actually look into it, the source doesn't back up the claim. Number 4, check the date. Some false stories aren't completely fake, but they are rather distortions of real events that happened in the past. Number 5, check your own biases. Now, I know this one is difficult because confirmation bias leads us to put more stock into information that confirms our beliefs, and that means we also tend to discount information that doesn't. So this is a very simple test. At the end of the day, everything that you find, I want you to Google it. Before you pass on any of your sources to your clients, it is very important to really make sure that you're passing along something credible. By passing along illegitimate sources to your own clients, it's really easy to undermine your own services or undermine the trust that they put in you. And as an admin, trust is a main component to our entire career. Your clients trust you to deliver high-end and accurate work consistently. So, research is no different. Sure, it takes a couple extra steps to make sure that you're passing along legitimate info, but in the long run, it's worth it.